One of the biggest mistakes I see Hasselblad photographers make has nothing to do with composition, light or camera settings. They never edit their photos. Not because they don't want to, they simply don't have the time. And after teaching photography workshops for years, I've learned that even the most expensive camera in the world won't help if your images never make it beyond the memory card. That's why I'm excited about Hasselblad Phocus Mobile for Android. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to organize, edit and share your Hasselblad images directly from your phone. As a professional photographer, I still do most of my editing on a computer in Adobe Lightroom and, fortunately now, in Capture One. But I completely understand why many hobby photographers never make it that far. Applications like Lightroom can feel overwhelming if you only edit occasionally. And after a long day of photography, the last thing most people want is to spend hours in front of a computer. That's exactly why I'm excited that Hasselblad has finally released its popular camera app for Android as well. It gives Hasselblad photographers a simple and intuitive way to review, organize, edit and share their images directly from their phone. As a Hasselblad Master, I had the opportunity to use Phocus Mobile for Android before its public release, and after testing it extensively over the past few weeks and using the iOS version for years, I can confidently say that this is the best camera companion app I've ever used. Today, I walk you through my complete workflow as well as the system requirements of the new app. Thank you to Hasselblad for sponsoring this video. For today's demonstration, we'll use some images from my long-term wind farm photography project, which I've been documenting now for several years. And if you'd like to follow along, you can download Phocus Mobile for Android or iOS for free from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store and try everything yourself as we go. At the time of recording, Phocus Mobile for Android supports the Hasselblad X2D and X2D Mark II and the CFW 100C digital back. To connect a new camera, open the app, tap the three dots in the upper right corner and select Device Connection. Then choose your camera model and enable Wi-Fi on the camera itself. I'll demonstrate this using my CFW 100C. Inside the camera menu, simply navigate to Wi-Fi and turn it on. You can choose between 5 GHz for faster transfer speeds or 2.4 GHz for a more stable connection over longer distances. Alternatively, you can enable Wi-Fi before launching the app or connect the new X2D Mark II directly to your smartphone via USB-C. Once the camera appears in Phocus Mobile, tap Connect and wait a few seconds for the connection to be established. The good news is that the app remembers your camera. The next time you launch Phocus Mobile, your camera will already be listed at the bottom of the screen and reconnecting takes only a single tap. In my experience, the connection is exceptionally reliable. Certainly more reliable than many camera apps I've used from Canon, Fujifilm and Leica. Once connected, tap the camera icon at the bottom of the screen to access the images stored on your camera. In my case, that's the 1 TB SSD inside the CFW 100C. You'll notice that these files are marked with R and H, which means they were captured both as RAW and HEIF files. We'll compare those formats later when we get to editing. Tapping an image opens a preview that is perfect for evaluating composition and selecting your favorites from the day. While the preview isn't intended for pixel-level sharpness checks, it's more than sufficient for culling and image selection. For portrait sessions, I often leave the screen open while shooting. Every time a new image automatically appears on the smartphone, allowing clients to quickly review the results as we work. If new captures aren't appearing automatically, simply tap the image stack icon and enable automatic jumping to the latest image. You can also view detailed shooting information, including exposure settings and file sizes. Once you've selected your favorite photographs, it's time to download them. Tap the selection icon and choose one or multiple images. You can even drag your fingers across the screen to select entire groups of photographs at once. From there, you can download the images either directly to your Android gallery or into the Phocus Mobile library. My recommendation is to import them into Phocus Mobile first, since that's where we'll do all of our editing. At this point, you'll be asked whether you'd like to download the RAW files or the HEIF versions. As a general rule, I recommend choosing HEIF whenever the image is already close to your intended final result. The files are dramatically smaller, just about 1/10 of the size, and transfer is much faster, and you save a significant amount of storage space on your phone. RAW files become useful when you need maximum flexibility. For example, when recovering highlights, opening deep shadows, or correcting a difficult exposure. Download speeds are surprisingly fast, especially if you're only transferring your favorite images from the day rather than an entire shoot. If you prefer, you can also enable automatic background downloads of every HEIF image captured with your camera. To do that, open Settings and activate Street Shot Assistant. Personally, I leave this feature disabled because it can fill up your phone's storage very quickly. While we're in the Settings menu, you'll also find several useful resources, including automatic lens corrections, information about HDR editing, and Hasselblad natural noise reduction, as well as downloadable camera manuals. That's particularly useful when you're traveling and need to quickly look up a camera setting without carrying a printed manual with you. Once your images have been downloaded, tap the pencil icon to enter the editing workspace. If you like, you can enable the histogram in the upper left corner, while all editing controls are conveniently accessible from the bottom of the screen. Let's edit this image of 2 wind turbines rising above a wheat field. When I capture the photograph, I intentionally underexposed it to protect the bright white turbine towers from clipping. So the first thing I'll do is increase the exposure by about 1 stop. Immediately the image starts to come alive. To add a little more depth, I'll reduce the shadow fill slightly. And then add some clarity to enhance local contrast and make the scene feel a bit more three-dimensional. You'll also notice a slider called Material Feel. This introduces a subtle film-like texture to the image. The effect becomes easier to see when you zoom in using a pinch gesture. So far, we've only adjusted the tonal values. Next, let's look at color. Tapping the color icon opens 3 different color adjustment panels. Vibrancy primarily boosts muted colors while protecting colors that are already saturated. Saturation, on the other hand, affects all colors equally. For this image, I'd like to emphasize the warm summer atmosphere, so I increase the color temperature slightly. One of my favorite tools inside Phocus Mobile is Selective Color. By tapping the plus icon, I can place a color sample directly onto the image and target a very specific color range. In this case, I'll select the blue tones of the sky, reduce the saturation slightly and brighten them a little bit. It's a subtle adjustment, but it helps direct the viewer's attention toward the wind turbines rather than the sky. Under lens corrections, I rarely need to adjust much. Hasselblad lenses are exceptionally well corrected and typically don't require significant distortion or chromatic aberration adjustments. The crop tool is something I use much more frequently. Here I can experiment with different aspect ratios, straighten the horizon, and even correct perspective distortion directly on my phone. If you'd like to learn how I edit complete fine art photography projects on my computer, I've also created a full Capture One workflow tutorial. You'll find a link to that in the video description below. Once I'm happy with the edit, I tap Done and return to the gallery. Here I can organize my images using ratings and favorites, making it easy to keep track of the strongest photographs from a project. To export an image, simply tap the Share icon. In most cases, I export a small JPEG. That's still more than twice the resolution of a 4K display and provides excellent image quality while keeping file sizes manageable. If you like, you can also add your signature or one of Hasselblad's built-in frames. I occasionally use these when sharing images on social media because they provide additional information about my camera settings and lens used for the photograph. You can also send your original FreeFR RAW file directly to Lightroom Mobile and add them to an existing catalog for further editing by pressing the Share button instead of Save to Album. This makes Phocus Mobile fit nicely into larger workflows without locking you into a single ecosystem. Because I mainly use Phocus Mobile for image selection, quick edits and sharing, I periodically remove finished projects from the app. The exported images remain safely stored on my phone, while deleting complete projects keeps plenty of space available for future work. If you found this video helpful so far, I'd really appreciate a like. And if you'd like to see more Hasselblad tutorials, workflow guides and photography tips, consider subscribing to the channel. We are getting closer to 10,000 subscribers and your support genuinely helps me continue creating these videos. Before we wrap up, let's take a look at two advanced features that make Phocus Mobile particularly interesting for Hasselblad photographers. The first one is HDR Editing. By tapping the HDR button inside the editing workspace, we can unlock the full brightness potential of modern HDR displays. For this, I like to keep the histogram visible so I can see exactly how much of the image is moving into the HDR brightness range. The tone curve is particularly powerful here. It allows me to push the brightest parts of the image further into the HDR range while protecting my deep shadows from becoming washed out. The result is an image with bright highlights, more depth and significantly more visual impact on compatible displays, while still maintaining detail in bright areas such as clouds and skies. And here's a small productivity tip. The button next to the information icon allows you to copy your editing settings and apply them to multiple images captured under similar conditions. This can save an enormous amount of editing time. Let's wrap this up by comparing HEIF and RAW files and how much editing flexibility you actually lose when working with either one. Let's compare the two using a photograph with an extremely high dynamic range. To exaggerate the differences, I'll push exposure, recovery and shadow fill to their extent. Much further than I normally would in a real edit. This isn't a realistic workflow, but it's a great way to reveal the limitations of each file format. Looking at the HEIF file, we can already see visible color noise appearing in the deepest shadows. At the same time, it's quite impressive how much information can still be recovered from a file that's only a fraction of the RAW file size. Now, let's apply these exact same adjustments to the RAW file. Here, we still see some noise in the shadows, but this is where Hasselblad's natural noise reduction comes into play. With a single tap, Phocus Mobile creates a new version of the image and uses AI-powered processing to significantly reduce the visible noise while preserving detail. The process only takes a few seconds. It's worth noting that advanced features such as Hasselblad Natural Noise Reduction are only available when working with RAW files. Before you download the app, let's quickly talk about system requirements. To access the full feature set, Hasselblad recommends an Android device running Android 12 or newer, equipped with at least 12 GB of RAM and a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor. For the best possible experience, you'll want Android 16, 16 GB of RAM and an HDR-capable display. For this tutorial, I used Oppo's latest flagship Find X9 Ultra, which was developed in collaboration with Hasselblad. Performance throughout the editing process was amazingly smooth and responsive. If you haven't already, you can download Phocus Mobile for Android free of charge from the Google Play Store and try it out yourself with your Hasselblad camera. Personally, I think it's the best camera companion app currently available, and it's become an important part of my workflow whenever I want to review, edit and share images away from my computer. If you have any questions about Phocus Mobile for Android, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you'd like to learn more about HDR editing and Lightroom workflows, you'll find additional tutorials here and my professional fine art image processing for Capture One in the video description. Until next time, enjoy your photography.